And Kanujan, none other than Kanujan, was besieging it, which is actually a fantastic coincidence. And that means that we're now pretty much able to just go in here, help out Mr. Kanujan in his efforts. Maybe we'll be able to besiege something after this as well, which would be very, very lucrative for us. Hello and welcome back to our Sturgian Viking. We're in a bit of a sticky situation here, and we're fighting the KHUZAIT, I believe. Yes, I seem to remember that they are indeed the KHUZAIT. Now, I was attempting to besiege a nearby castle, I believe it was Gauss Castle, and I was attempting to take it. Unfortunately, I was taking it by myself, so as a result, I was kind of, shall we just say, outnumbered quite dramatically by a number of people surrounding me right here. So that's exactly who we're fighting right now. We're fighting these armies that have attempted to try and intercept us. And I'm just hopeful that we will be okay. No, never mind. Jump and slash was a failure. Complete and total failure, actually. And we're going to tell everyone else to charge in here. Now, bear in mind that obviously we do have to deal with a number of horse archers. And as I have said multiple times, I personally feel like horse archers are extremely strong, especially against infantry-only armies. And it is going to be a very difficult fight for us indeed. So I thought, hey, what better way to start the episode than with an absolute bloodbath? Hopefully it's not going to be our bath, and it will be someone else's. Most notably, these guys. Yeah, oh, we seem to be doing okay. Oh, no. You. Yeah, you know, I literally blocked that, you know. I tried, at least. I mean, generally, I feel like it's very difficult for me specifically to block thrusting attacks. It's kind of weird. Oh, he's dead. Yeah, he got murdered like no one's business. But yeah, blocking thrusting attacks, as you can see, you block downwards, right? Oh, are you serious? This guy was literally able to deal damage to me even though I was prepared. Oh, crazy. Anyway, we seem to actually be achieving victory here. I think purely for the reason that none of the, shall we say, majority of units were able to get into this fight, because there were a number of people in a much larger army nearby, and they were the ones that I was actually afraid of. Well, are we really afraid of anything? Not really. I mean, I generally am running around with a two-handed axe with no shield at, what, 10% HP. So generally I'd say I'm not that afraid of that much. However, maybe that's just because I'm a bit stupid. So anyway, the point is we are going to have a bit of an issue getting away from that army because, as I said, we were besieging it. And then all of a sudden, we were surrounded on basically all sides. And while I was attempting to escape, they were able to catch up and engage us. Anyway, there you go. 210 renown, 150 influence. Fantastic rewards. Obviously, the influence is definitely going to come in handy. The renown, not so much. But we are gaining, as you can see, from leadership perks, an additional 35 renown from this. It would be fantastic for us to gain some more, but obviously that's... well, it's kind of pointless at this point, isn't it? Because we are just literally rolling in renown and clan size, or shall we say party size. Anyway, that's going to take a bunch of these. Yes, I did attempt, by the way, to try to persuade Mr. Tasler to join us, but he was one of those guys. He was one of those guys with, basically a 60% chance almost across the board for most of his conversation options, at least for me. And he's very, very difficult to try and get to join you, especially if you can't even get to the persuasion phase. As you can see, this is the large army that I was extremely worried about. And as you can see, the castle was actually not even that well defended, so it would have been, well, in my opinion, quite simple to take it. And it looks as though we are able to escape from the focus of this army here. I might try to take Shinopsis Castle potentially. I mean, here's the thing. We do have a lot of options. There are a lot of options to do here. I did say actually that I was going to show the world map. So here you go. Here's the world map. This is exactly what's going on. And we are not at war against the Western Empire anymore. Obviously, we did have that fantastic peace agreement that provides us with an overwhelming amount of tribute. I believe, me personally, I'm getting about 1,400 per day just from that one tribute agreement. That's just insane. That's an insane amount, especially considering I do have quite a few caravans running around, and obviously because we are at war with the nearest factions to us, or should we say, we are at peace with the nearest factions to us, my caravans are able to run around without too many difficulties. So you can see here, not much has happened with the Vlandians. As you no doubt saw in a previous episode, we were able to persuade, I believe it was Mr. Heckard, and as a result, I did get Hongard Castle for myself. Now, obviously, in the grand scheme of things, gaining Hongard Castle in such a weird location is really not going to do that much. I mean, let's face it, it's really not going to do much at all. However, it is, in my opinion, kind of a nice distraction, and you got to bear in mind that most of the Vlandian vassals are indeed prisoners of ours. So, until the Vlandians want to make peace with us, which is probable going to happen maybe quite soon, I'm actually not sure about that, but as soon as that happens, then we might be having some problems, because those guys are going to be all released, pretty much. And I think, actually, you know what? Maybe it actually depends on how many of them you have taken prisoner, how much tribute your faction gains. Has anyone done the testing on that? Because I actually don't know the answer to it. Because if you take a huge amount of prisoners and you weaken the combat strength significantly enough, then it could be possible that the faction that wants peace will provide a much greater tribute as a result of your overwhelming strength, I guess you could call it. Anyway, Saratis is actually the leader of this guy's clan, so we will just do a nice little auto-resolve there. These smaller battles, not really worth me going in manually, unless I want to try and get a killing blow on the enemy vassal, which of course is just a percentage chance. There is not really a guarantee that that will happen, so I'm generally tending to be a bit more on the cautious side of things. Who's this, though? Hello? Who is that? Ooh, he has quite a few heavy lancers, and he has a couple of prisoners and everything. I'm actually wondering, maybe I could deal with this guy. Shall we? Shall we try? Alright, so it's been a while since you saw me down in, well, where were we? We were almost in Southern Empire territory, I think, and we were contemplating whether to attack Mr. Chaghan's party and army and, well, a variety of other things. And basically what I did was I decided that because personally, I didn't really want to put all of my units on the line, because believe it or not, they're actually not that easy to come by. They're kind of hard to sort of get to join your army initially, and to obviously level them up. To level them up is quite... I mean, it's not that difficult if you just auto-resolve against a whole bunch of bandits whenever you can see them and so on. It's not that difficult to level them, but to acquire them to begin with is a little bit tough. But the point is, I didn't really want to go up against the guy by myself, and I would much rather have some assistance by someone else. So I decided, hey, okay, let's see if we can maybe divide and conquer them, because obviously that's a pretty decent strategy to have most of the time. Divide and conquer is a tried and tested method of always gaining some kind of advantage and not really suffering too many casualties, or at least hoping not to. And what I did was I shadowed the guy. I literally just shadowed the guy for the entirety of the time. And he was, of course, chasing me as well. So anytime he would lose interest, I would just go a little bit closer to him. And then when he, started to chase me again, then I would begin to once again run away. Now, obviously, I had no idea where he wanted to go. It was basically just pot luck where he wanted to go to be honest. And in the end, he decided that he wanted to go and defend Vladiv Castle. And Vladiv Castle is very close by to this current location where we are right now. And Kanujan, none other than Kanujan, was besieging it, which is actually a fantastic coincidence, pretty much. And that means that we're now pretty much able to just go in here, help out Mr. Kanujan in his efforts, maybe we'll be able to besiege something after this as well, which would be very, very lucrative for us. And, well, take out a very large army of the opponent, which is great. So I'm pretty happy with this. Unfortunately, again, horse archers are proving to be my bane. And yes, I have taken massive damage from them, even though I have literally held my shield button down the entire time. Apart from attacking, like, what, 3 or 4 times now. So a bit strange. A bit strange how they're always able to get a good angle on you. But I think that generally when that happens, it's probably because of their increased mobility. They're able to either aim at your side, or because of the increased amounts of, well, shall we say, hitboxes. The hitboxes are much better in Bannerlord, so it's a lot easier for you to get past enemy shields. And it's the same thing for the opponent when they're attacking you, because I remember in Warband, when you would shoot at a particular enemy and they had a significant amount of shield skill, it would basically be impossible. It would basically be almost impossible. You'd have maybe a 90-95% chance to miss them or to hit the shield, in other words. And, well, you couldn't really do much about it. You basically just had to wait until they lowered their shield, or just get kind of lucky with the hitbox. I know a lot of people disagree potentially with me on that, but I've always found that when you're playing an archer-based character, if you do have one of those situations where you're in a siege and you're trying to weaken up the opponent, they generally tend to have their shields up almost all the time, and it's very difficult to eliminate even one of them. Because obviously, unless you are playing a mod like, I don't know, Prophecy of Pendor or something like that, one of the really good ones, then you kind of have maybe good gear. It depends on the situation, obviously, and the progression that you have in that particular campaign. But let's say you're at the very end. Let's say you're in late game and you're doing one of the final sieges. You're going to be able to destroy that shield relatively fast, unless it is another very high tier unit. So generally, shields are not going to be that difficult to deal with, but that's the reason why, obviously, having the increased, you can't really even call it fidelity, really, because, I mean, you can basically say, oh, these graphics have a very high fidelity to them. No, you can't say that, but it's smoother, shall we say. The whole hitbox thing is much smoother in the way that it's dealt with, and it is a lot easier, well, for the opponent to hit you, and it's a lot easier for you to hit the opponent, because all the hitboxes are much more refined than they used to be. So that's nice. I gotta say, I feel like that's nice, but it's also not nice because it makes me die. But, you know, that happens. Anyway, let's hope that Kanojan will actually decide to begin his siege at Look at this. There's only what? There's only 49. There's only 49 in here. Let's do it. Let's go in. Let's see if we can do something. There's Kada right there. Kada was actually a leader of the army that was around here before, and they actually took Urexkala Castle, which I am not a big fan of, thank you very much. I don't particularly appreciate them doing that, but obviously I was nowhere around there. I was baiting that army into attacking, but this should be pretty easy. Actually, wait a minute. Did someone just defect? Wait a minute. Corinios? No, okay. I was thinking to myself if he was actually a member of the Sturgians, but apparently no. It doesn't look as though he was. So, I guess that's at least good, because that means that he didn't backstab us or anything like that. But, yeah. Anyway. Yeah, that's actually pretty good then. So we can easily take that back, no problem at all, because the garrison is no doubt going to be extremely bare bones at the moment, so it should be pretty easy for us. And as you can see, we have these kinds of stalemates with movement speed. And I'm actually wondering, is this guy the leader of his clan? All these new vassals I'm kind of getting a bit confused about. But thankfully we are able to murder him very, very easily. Well, not literally, obviously. We're just going to take him prisoner. And we are otherwise just going to be taking all of the loot. All right. So, oh yes. By the way, you might want to know this. I'm not entirely sure if you do, but you might want to know this. Anyway, Myzea, obviously, as we saw in the previous episode, that was taken. And the vote as to who to give it to, it was between me and 2 other people, Godun and a guy called Bellathor or something like that. I actually have never seen this guy before in my life, but yeah, that guy, whoever he is, and obviously Mr. Godun. And I decided, hey, you know what? Godun's got some nearby stuff. Let's give it to him. And so he now has control over the town. So hopefully he's going to become much more powerful as a result of that, because obviously the insane amounts of, well, just shall we say, prosperity that you're going to gain from having a town under your control is actually pretty cool. So I'm hopeful that he will maximize the potential out of that. Otherwise, we're going to be gaining a little bit of scouting skill here. Well, technically I don't think this is actually working, but obviously, as I've said, I don't know whether my perk mod actually fixes the issue, because I'm still obviously playing on 1.5.2, and the developers are actually working hard. The developers of Bannerlord are working hard on implementing the remaining traits, because I know a lot of people have been complaining about the fact that there aren't that many traits that are actually game suitable, and they're not working yet, and so the developers are dedicating quite a lot of time to that. Anyway, I'm actually kind of wondering whether we can do this. We are somewhat injured, and he is wanting to attack me, I would assume. Basically, I wanted to either force him to come out of hiding, because I obviously had no idea where he was, or he was just going to let his castle get taken. And that's exactly what we wanted to make him choose between, you know. We obviously want to make the AI make difficult decisions. We want to force them to do that, because if we can do that, then we're going to have an overall advantage. Obviously, the psychology of it is completely lost on them, because they are, well, purely just lines of code. But, you know, in a more base sense, they are our opponent, and we must try to maximize the amount of damage that we can deal to their morale and to their spirit as well. And if that means making them choose difficult situations between a rock and a hard place kind of thing, then that's exactly what we're going to do. Anyway, let me just take a quick look at my party screen. There we go. Upgrade 2 troops. Yeah, that's basically pointless. Okay, so I have 65% HP. I'm actually I'm not entirely sure whether we can even deal with this guy. Let me see if I can just run him around a little bit more and see if we can maybe get his cohesion to decrease, or maybe to get him to start starvation. Alright, so, well, yes, as you can no doubt tell, we're not actually doing battle with that army, unfortunately. I really wanted to, but I kind of weighed it up, and they had a lot of cavalry, and if I don't have any additional vassals to sort of buffer the amount of damage that is coming in, then I'm pretty much going to just suffer way too many casualties, and it's just going to end up being an absolute bloodbath for me specifically. And obviously, even though the Sturgians are doing pretty well, as you can no doubt tell by the combat strength on the left side of the screen on that previous little menu there, oh, well, maybe not so good now, because we've actually just lost a relatively large army there, and they were pretty close by, actually. That's not great. Oh dear. That might actually be pretty bad. We might indeed suffer some consequences as a result of that, but we don't know. Maybe there will be an army that has been significantly damaged, and we don't need to worry necessarily. But I'm going to keep a very close watch on what's going on. Bear in mind, my scouting skill is absolutely awful. So if anyone does appear out of nowhere, we're pretty much not going to know that they're there until they're right on top of us. As you can see right here, a lot of vassals coming in here. I really do want to just take Urikskala Castle back, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to... Aha! Yes. Now, this is a problem, okay? This is a big issue. Now, even though Kanujan is doing a fantastic job, as you can see right there, he has about, well, actually almost 700 troops in his army, and he's actually attempting to take Vladiv Castle. Started, well, shall we say, finish what he started. We're going to be leading this assault, and this is going to be a bit weird, because we don't have 2 siege towers, and this is under the cover of night. We haven't really done this that often, a night battle. And we don't have any fire onagers, unfortunately, so I can't take advantage of the wondrous weather effects and how cool it looks to see a flaming projectile flying through the sky. I would love to be able to show that to you again, because obviously we've done that previously in the series as well, but yeah, otherwise I just didn't have the time, you know. I barely got two siege engines up and running, and the siege tower, the second one, was barely started before I had to go in here. Now, the main issue is, here's the thing. Whenever you stop a siege in Bannerlord, you have a period of disorganization, and that is a status that afflicts you pretty heavily with a pretty bad movement speed debuff. And as a result, it pretty much prevents you from escaping from any kind of tricky situation that you may find yourself in as a result of doing the siege. And that's the point. That's the reason why a lot of vassals, AI vassals specifically, of course, will surround you in such a weird manner, because you think to yourself, oh, look at that, it's just a guy with, 60 or 70 units. I can easily take care of him, right? Yeah, but those kinds of situations are actually corrupted a little bit by the presence of a massive army bearing down on you from some other direction. And what's going to happen is, you are so incredibly slow by the disorganized debuff or status effect that you are then going to attempt to escape, but because you're so slow, the party with 60 or 70 units is so fast, because of course that they are going to be much faster than you are, because you have, a much larger army, and then the large army is potentially going to be close enough to join the battle, and then you're going to be in a very bad spot. So that's the reason why I was basically forced to go in here at this time. I would have loved to have auto-resolve this, in my opinion. I feel like the auto-resolve would have made more sense, but I'm hopeful that we won't lose too many units anyway, because I do have a decent medicine skill. It's not amazing, but I do have a decent one. Am I literally... Where am I getting shot from? Literally, where am I getting shot from? I don't see it. Oh, over there. That guy over there. Aha, okay, yeah. That makes sense. But there's barely anyone in the garrison here. That's the main problem, you see. Because, look at this. They have 155. I mean, that's nothing, That really is nothing. So if I had gotten up that second siege tower, I would have just auto-resolved this straight up. Unfortunately, the army did appear, and it seems like the KHUZAIT have almost unlimited military power at this point, because their vassals have remained, well, untouched for the most part throughout this entire campaign. They haven't really suffered any casualties whatsoever in the form of deaths or being taken prisoner or being defeated or whatever the case. And as a result, they are now running around with some pretty strong armies almost everywhere. Like almost all of their vassals have pretty strong armies, and that is a bad thing indeed. So yeah, now we are suffering as a result of me not focusing on them just a little bit more in the early game. But personally, when I was in the early game and the mid game, I was thinking to myself, what can I do to try and reduce the amount of contact with the KHUZAIT? Because, and get this, I don't actually like fighting against horse archers. I know, it's a surprising revelation, is it not? Yes, absolutely surprising. You would not have expected that whatsoever. I haven't stated my disdain for the horse archer unit many times before or anything like that, of course. Yes, of course I have, but anyway, the point is that in general, you probably do want to try and weaken a lot of the factions early on when they don't have significant strength built up just yet, especially ones like the KHUZAIT. Now, thankfully, because we were able to take this, which is great, it's good. it's a nice little resolution to this particular situation. We can now head straight in to the garrison, and we can pretty much just chill out. We don't need to worry about doing anything else. Unfortunately, Khanujan is now going to be receiving a rather rude visitor, but hopefully he's going to finish up at Vladiv Castle before that army can arrive. So let me just take a quick look at the map for you just after all of that has happened. Not much else has transpired in the entirety of this, so we don't really need to worry about it. And otherwise, that's going to be it for this episode. If you enjoyed the video, then please leave a like. I thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.